before I start the reading, I just want to give you a heads up. I didn't realize that I didn't change my settings to external mic. So this is all read from my computer's microphone, so it sounds distant and like a tape recorder for, like, if I'm reading my urban legend files. That's how I record it. So it's gonna sound kind of weird, but I really, really don't want to record this. So, I mean, it's still clear and everything. It just sounds different than my normal narration, so please forgive me. I'm sorry I didn't realize it. But man, I read for 27 minutes and I do not want to read this again. Plus, I don't think I'll have some of the... I wouldn't come up with some of the other comments, and it'd probably be judgment-free if I redid it. So please, I'm sorry for the terrible quality of the following reading.
Hey guys, I'm Minute Siren, and today we're going to be doing another Crappypasta. And today that Crappypasta is going to be Laughing Jack. Now, I've never actually read this for myself. I listened to Mr. Creepypasta read it, and I remember I didn't really think it was that bad of a story, but I know it's overloaded with gore and stuff, so that's usually why it's regarded as not good. So for that sake, I'm going to be reading it today. Though I think I would also like to do like a formal reading of it sometime. And guys, it would help me out a lot if you could maybe suggest more Crappypastas for me to read. I have a few that I want to do, but they're longer for one, and for two, they're more popular, and I would like to do less popular ones, you know, kind of like Beware Omegle. So if you guys know of any bad creepypastas you've came across and would like me to read them, just suggest them in the comments. And the same thing goes for regular creepypastas, because I'm always looking for not so popular ones too, especially when I don't have to search for them. So suggest those too. Anyway, I am going to get right into it, and I'm going to be reading Laughing Jack. It was a nice summer day. My 5-year-old son, James, was playing outside in the backyard of our suburban home. James has always been a quiet boy. He plays by himself mostly. He never had many friends, but he has always had a wild imagination. And that sentence goes on way too long. We needed to find some way to break it up. I was in the kitchen feeding our dog Fido, what an original name, when I heard it was sounded like James talking to someone in the backyard. I'm not sure who it was he could be talking to. But could he have finally made a friend? Wow, nice faith in your son, lady. Being a single mom, it's hard for me to always keep an eye on my son, so I decided to go outside and check on him. When I went into the backyard, I was a bit confused. Wait, didn't she just contradict herself? She's like, it's hard for me to keep an eye on my son, so I go and check on him. I don't know. Anyway, because James was the only person back there. Was he talking to himself? I could have sworn I heard another voice. She just said James had a wild imagination, and now she's surprised that he's talking to an imaginary friend. James, it's time to come inside, I called out to him. He came inside and sat down at the kitchen table. It was about lunchtime, so I decided to make him a turkey sandwich. I don't care what kind of sandwich you made him. James, who are you talking to out there? I asked. James looked up for a moment. I was playing with my new friend, he said, smiling. I poured him some milk and continued to pry, as any good mother would do. Does your friend have a name? Why didn't you ask him to have lunch with us? I asked. James stared at me for a moment before replying. His name is Laughing Jack. I was a bit taken aback by what he had said. Oh, that's a strange name. What does your friend look like? I asked, a bit confused. He's a clown. He has long hair and big swirly cone nose. He's got long arms and baggy pants with stripy socks, and he always smiles. I realized my son was talking about an imaginary friend. I suppose it is normal for kids of his age to have imaginary friends, especially when he has no real kids to play with. It's probably just a phase. Now, this is kind of scary to me because I freaking hate clowns. I do not like clowns. So I think, like, the imagery of Laughing Jack is kind of creepy, at least. The rest of the day went as per usual, and it was starting to get late, so I put James to bed. I tucked him in, gave him a kiss, and made sure to turn on his nightlight before I closed the door. I was pretty tired myself, so I decided to go to bed not long after. I had an awful nightmare. Of course you did. It was dark. I was in some kind of rundown amusement park. I was scared, running through an endless field of empty tents, broken down rides, and abandoned game huts. The whole place had a horrible look to it. Everything was black and white. Prized stuffed animals all hung from nooses in the game huts, all with thick grins stitched on their faces. I felt like the whole park was looking at me, even though there wasn't another living thing in sight. Then suddenly, I began to hear music play. The sounds of Pop Goes the Weasel being played on a squeeze box echoed through the park. It was hypnotizing. I followed its tune to the circus tent almost in a trance, unable to stop my legs from moving forward. It was pitch black. The only light came from a single spotlight shining on the center of the big top. As I walked toward the light, the music slowed down. I found myself singing along, unable to stop. The music stopped right before its climax, and suddenly the light shot on. The intensity of the light was practically blinding. All I could see was a small dark silhouette shuffle towards me. Then another one appeared, and another and another. There were dozens of them, all coming toward me. I couldn't move, my legs were frozen. All I could do was watch as the haunting figures drew nearer. As they got closer, I could see they were children. As I looked at each one, I noticed they were horribly disfigured and mutilated. And here we go, starting with the gore already. Some had cuts all over their bodies, others were severely burned, and others were missing limbs, even eyes. The children enveloped me, clawing at my flesh, dragging me to the ground. Yeah, that digging me to the ground makes sense. And tearing inside me. Ew! As the children tore me apart and I faded away, all I could hear was laughter. Horrible, awful, evil laughter. I woke up the next morning in a cold sweat. After taking a few deep breaths, I looked over and saw that a few of James's action figures were positioned facing me on top of my nightstand. I sighed. James had probably woken up early and put these here. I gathered up the toys and made my way to James's room. However, when I opened the door, James was sound asleep. I just shrugged and placed the toys back into his toy box and headed out to the living room. A little while later, James woke up and I made him his breakfast. He was quiet and seemed a bit groggy. Perhaps he didn't sleep well either. I decided to ask him about the toys. James, honey, did you put the toys in Mommy's room this morning? His eyes shot up for a moment and then quickly glanced back down at his cereal. Laughing Jack did it. I rolled my eyes and responded. Well, you tell Laughing Jack to keep the toys in your room. James nodded and finished up his breakfast, then decided to go play out in the backyard. Okay, I'm just gonna have to pause here for a minute. That whole thing is the very essence of cliche. In horror movies, when children befriend little ghost children and stuff, and then those little ghost children play pranks on people, and they're always like, did you do blah blah blah? And they're always like, so-and-so did it. And then they're like, well, you tell so-and-so, which is basically just what happened here. Another thing I have to complain about, and this is one thing that really gets me, is as an aspiring writer, I am very hard about people formatting their stories wrong. And this story formats it terribly. When you do dialogue, you have to enter down, tab, quote, then you put the words, you put a comma if it is a sentence, or a question mark or exclamation mark if it's a question or if you're exclamating at something. And then another quote. And then you put blah 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 said. Well, this, all it does is it keeps all the quotes in the freaking same paragraph, and that drives me wild. I hate when people do that. So, it just bothers me. It's hard to read. It's hard to tell who's talking sometimes. I mean, in this story, there's only 2 people talking, so it's really not that hard. But if you're in another story where there's multiple people, it's really, really difficult. It looks bad. It just isn't right. You have to format it at least somewhat. It just drives me up the wall. So, okay, rant over. I will continue reading now. I went to relax in the living room, and I must have dozed off because I woke up a couple of hours later. Shit, I need to check on James! I was a bit worried. It had been over 2 hours, and I haven't checked on him. How old is this kid? Did it say? I don't think it said. I think it would have been important to establish how old this kid was. Yeah, that's a good sentence. I stepped out into the backyard, but James wasn't there anymore. I was getting nervous, so I called out to him, James, where are you? Just then I heard a giggle come from the front yard. I rushed through the gate around to the front of the house. James was sitting on the sidewalk. I breathed a sigh of relief and walked over to him. James, how many times have I told you to stay in the backyard? James, what are you eating? James looked up at me, reached into his pocket, and pulled out a handful of candies in all colors. This made me very nervous. James, who gave you that candy? James just stared at me and not speaking. James, please tell Mommy where you got that candy. James hung his head and said, Laughing Jack gave it to me. My heart sunk. I kneeled down to look him in the eye. James, I've had enough of this damn Laughing Jack. He's not real. Now this is a very serious situation. I need to know who gave you the candy. I could see my son's eyes tear up. But Mama, Laughing Jack did give me the candy. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. James has never lied to me, but what he's telling me is impossible. I make him spit out the candy. Oh, there's a tense change. And I throw away the rest. Stop tense changing. Oh my god. James appears to be fine. Wait, wasn't this in past tense a few seconds ago? Yes, right here it says James looked up. Now it's saying James appears to be fine. I hate that. This is one other thing that drives me insane. Maybe I'm just overreacting. After all, he could have gotten it from Tom or Linda next door. Oh, sorry, Tom and Linda next door. Or Mr. Walker down the street. Either way, I'm going to have to keep a closer eye on James. That night, I put James to bed as usual and decided to go to bed early myself. And then now we're back in past tense. Oh my god, I hate that. I'm sorry, guys. I hate that so much. And here's another cliche thing. Now, I know when we are the readers or the viewers or whatever, we know what the kid is saying is true. Because we have the insight that the parent or the person or the author doesn't at this time. But it just drives me crazy when people do not believe other people and they turn out to be correct. I mean, I know it's probably just subjective, but, and I'm pretty sure if I was put in that situation, I wouldn't believe them either, but Jesus, is it annoying. Anyway, suddenly I was woken up by a loud bang coming from the kitchen. I sprung out of bed and hurried downstairs. When I got to the kitchen, I was horrified. Everything on the counters had been thrown on the floor, and our dog Fido hung dead from the light fixture. Really, like you mentioned the dog once, now he's dead. Literally, that dog was just in there to die. His stomach was cut open and stuffed with candy, the same type that James was eating earlier that day. My shock was quickly broken by a sharp scream coming from James's room, followed by loud crashes. I quickly grabbed a knife from the drawer and moved up the stairs with the speed that only a mother whose child is in danger could have. I burst through the door and flicked on the lights. Everything in the room was knocked over and tossed on the floor. My poor son in his bed, crying and shaking with fear. A pool of urine staining the sheets. I scooped my child up and ran out of the house and went next door to Tom and Linda's house. Luckily, they were still awake. They let me use their phone, and I called the police. It didn't take them long to arrive, and I explained what had happened. They looked at me as if I were crazy. Why? Because some maniac... It could not have been Laughing Jack. I mean, I don't know if she said that it was possibly Laughing Jack, but at this point it doesn't sound like she believes him. The only evidence she has that might be real is the fact that it was still candy, but it still could have been some real maniac that wasn't this kid's imaginary friend or something. And I don't see why the police would think they were crazy, because her dog is in there dead with freaking candy stuffed in his stomach. So obviously she's not crazy that some maniac was trying to kill them. Anyway, they searched the house, but all they found was a dead dog and 2 trashed rooms. The officer told me that someone had probably gotten into the house and done this right before making a quick escape when they heard me coming up the stairs. I knew it wasn't true. All the doors were locked and none of the windows were open. Whatever was in my house didn't come from outside. The next day, James stayed inside. I didn't want him to leave my sight. I went into the garage and found his old baby monitor and set it up in his room. If anything comes in, and there's a freaking touch change again, comes into his room, I was going to be able to hear it. I went to the kitchen and grabbed the largest knife from the drawer and put it on my nightstand. Imaginary friend or not, I'm not letting anything hurt my little boy. So now she believes him. Soon enough, night came. I put James to bed. He was afraid, but I promised that I wasn't going to let anything happen to him. I tucked him in, gave him a kiss, and turned on the nightstand. Before closing the door, I whispered to him, "Good night, James. I love you." I don't know why it matters what you whisper to him. I tried to stay up as long as I could, but after a few hours I felt myself drifting off. My baby would be safe for the night, and I needed to sleep. Just as I laid my head on the pillow, I heard a soft noise come from the baby monitor I had put on the nightstand. At first it sounded like interference. I almost said interface, like the kind a radio would make. Then it turned into a soft moan. Was James asleep? Then I heard it, the laugh from my nightmare. That horrible laugh. I sprung up from the bed and grabbed the knife from under my pillow. I rushed over to James. I would not sleep with a knife under my pillow. I'd end up cutting my arm off or something. I rushed over to James's room and creaked the door open. I tried the light switch, but it wouldn't come on. I took a step in and I could feel the warm, thick liquid on my feet. Why is it the warm, not warm? I don't know. Suddenly, James's nightlight came on, and I could see the absolute horror laid out in front of me. This is where it gets really gruesome, guys. So hold on tight. James's body was nailed up on the wall. Why didn't the kid scream when this was happening? And how did it happen so quickly? I'm sorry. The nails piercing through his hands and feet. His chest was cut wide open and his organs hung down to the floor. His eyes and tongue had been removed, along with most of his teeth. I was disgusted. I could hardly believe this was my baby boy. This is really grossing me out. Then I heard it again, the soft, desperate moan. James was still alive. I don't see how. My baby, my poor baby, in so much pain, barely clinging to life. I ran across the room and vomited on the floor. Well, thanks. That resolves lots of stuff. My sickness was interrupted by a horrible cackle coming from behind me. I spun around while still wiping bile from my mouth. Then out of the shadows emerged the fiend responsible for all this horror, Laughing Jack. His ghost-white skin and matted black hair hung down to his shoulders. He had piercing white eyes surrounded by dark black rings. His twisted smile revealed a roll of sharp, jagged teeth. And his skin didn't look like skin at all. It almost looked like rubber or plastic. He wore a patchy black and white clown outfit, striped sleeves and socks. His body itself was grotesque, his long arms hanging down past his waist, and the way don't all arms laying down past the waist? Isn't that basically the normal arm length? I mean, if they were hanging down past his knees, then yeah, he's got a problem. But as it seems like he's got pretty normal length arms. And now I've lost my place. His long arms hanging down past his waist, and the way he was poised made him look almost boneless, like a rag doll. He let out a sickening laugh as if to let me know he was pleased with my reaction to his work. He then turned around slowly in front of James. In front of James? I thought she ran over there to him and was standing beside. I'm confused. And began to laugh even more at the horrific sight he was laid out. That was enough to shake me from my terror. I snapped, "Get away from him, you bastard!" I rushed at the monster, raising the knife above my head, and stabbed down at him. But as soon as the knife touched him, he disappeared in a cloud of black smoke. The knife passed right through and pierced James's still beating somehow heart, splashing the warm freaking blood on my face. Jeez. I still think it said that she ran to him. Let's see if I can find this. Hold on. I ran across the room. She ran across the room. But why did she run to a random place across the room if she wasn't going to run to her son? Makes total sense. There's a freaking plot hole right there. Plot hole. Anyway. No. What have I done? Well, his organs were hanging on the floor. His organs were hanging on the floor. He had no tongue and eyes. He was probably going to die anyway, lady. I'm sorry, but he was going to die. So you probably just ended up putting him out of his extended misery. My baby. I killed my baby. I immediately fell to my knees, and I could hear sirens in the distance growing louder. How the hell is there freaking sirens? I don't think they were being loud enough to have, like, neighbors call the police, and she sure as hell didn't call the police, so... My boy, my sweet baby boy, stop saying that. I promised Mommy would protect you, but I failed. I'm sorry, James. I'm so sorry. Why didn't she just sleep in the room with him? Or why didn't he sleep in her room? That doesn't make any sense. If my kid was scared as hell about some thing that killed my dog, my kid would definitely be sleeping in my room with me. Police soon arrived to find me in front of my son, still wielding the knife covered in my baby's blood. The trial was short, insanity. I was placed in the, I don't know how to pronounce this, Veropolos House for the Criminally Insane, where I have been for the past 2 months. It's not so bad here. The only reason I'm awake now is because someone is playing Pop Goes the Weasel outside my window. I'll talk to the orderlies about it in the morning. See, I kind of like how it ended, but it transitions. This is all in the same freaking paragraph. It says, police soon arrived to find me. Police soon arrived to find me in front of my son, still wielding the knife. 2, I'll talk to the orderlies about it in the morning. Maybe if it had, like, went into another paragraph, and she had talked more about the hospital before I'll talk to the orderlies about it in the morning, that would have been a perfect ending. But, whatever. Anyway, let's read some of the comments. I came here expecting a lot. A friend of mine highly recommended this and called it one of the best pastas of all time. But now I find myself very disappointed. 3 out of 10. And then someone replied to that being a grammar Nazi about this person misspelling disappointed. And then there was someone saying that Origin a Laughing Jack is better. And then here's another comment. Good God, when are they going to delete this thing? And then someone replied to him saying not to be mean or anything, I'm just going to state an opinion. Until the site has come up with a decision on what to do with it, delete it per request if owner, or place it in historical archives. That is all. Wow, that literally did not answer, good God, when are they going to delete this thing at all? So that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I keep hearing about how this pasta is super amazing and scary. I guess it was good. Not as delicious as advertised, but tastefully written nonetheless. How is it tastefully? It's freaking blood and gore fest 20 freaking whatever year this was written. Sorry. 7 out of 10 cups of tea. This is another version of Laughing Jack. I'm not sure where Snuff Bomb put his version, but you can check out Mr. Creepypasta. For the narration of the original, you might not like it. Why would he listen to a narration of something he just read? Well, I mean, I know I do, but if he just says that he didn't really, it was okay, I don't know. I just think this is an average creepypasta. I like the concept of Laughing Jack, but the gore kind of takes me out of it and grosses me out to the point that I was getting a little bit queasy reading about the kid and stuff, so it kind of removes me from the story. That and the freaking formatting of it, and just the awkward conversation thing. So basically, to me, this is just an average creepypasta, and I personally would give it a 5 out of 10. Alright, let's see. The build-up with the monster finding the mysterious candle. What? And such was chilling. Everything up to the ending was good, but the last bit with the gore took me out of it. If it was a decent story, but needs some work. I have higher expectations for the origin, though. 7 out of 10. I've never I've never read or listened to the original Laughing Jack, so I will probably do a narration on that, but I really need to listen to someone read it, or read it for myself before I do that. I clicked on it when I was planning on doing this, and I read, the first line, but that was it. The original Laughing Jack was so much better. Not sorry to say that this was very disappointing compared to it. 5 out of 10. I don't know where to start. Oh wait, that sucked. Since this is so popular, I expected it to be good, but sadly it was horrible pasta. Blood plus death equals lame pasta. Everyone should know this. 2 out of 10. See, for some reason, the most popular creepypastas end up usually not being that good. I mean, for example, Jeff the Killer, Sonic.exe, they're not good. Jeff the Killer is my least favorite story, and I really wish someone would rewrite it. And I don't mean reformat it and take out some of the awkwardness of the conversations. I mean, take the idea of Jeff the Killer, scrap the entire story of him, the entire original story, and just rewrite it. Maybe take an inspiration from the original story, but not following it. I'm sorry, I don't know how I got on Jeff the Killer, but seriously, this piece of trash is going to give me a migraine. First off, why would Snuff Bomb introduce a dog only to kill it later? Second, the story doesn't tell us the origin of the monster called Laughing Jack. Instead, the origin is told in the even worse sequel called The Origin of Laughing Jack. Third, Laughing Jack is basically a gothic version of Pennywise from the movie It. Finally, the story is out of context in various ways. Overall, I'm going to give this a 3 out of 10. And then here's someone that's 9.99 out of 10, one of the greatest creepypastas I've ever read. Notice that I said one of the best. Oh, what's your other best? Freaking Jeff the Killer? And then someone said, how can you call this shit one of the best? The story makes no sense in a bad way. Okay. I think that should be all. This has gone on way longer than I expected it to. Laughing Jack isn't that long of a story if you look at it, so I didn't think it was going to take me this long to do it. Plus, I keep interrupting myself and making snide comments, and then I read the comments. So, for now, I'm Midnight Siren, and I will see you guys next time.